So we've been talking about these protests, right? We've been talking about how certain people are behaving, how certain people are acting. And for me, what happened in Michigan, what's happening throughout the country, to me, it's not an issue of the Second Amendment. It's not an issue of the Second Amendment at all. It is perfectly legal to carry your AR-15. It is perfectly legal to dress up as G.I. Joe. Never have I said on this show that you're breaking the law by doing so. You have the right to do it. But you know what? The argument that I always make is you also have the right to hold up a sign on the street that says, I hate minorities, too. You have a First Amendment right to do that. Doesn't make it right, though. And I personally believe...
And there can be repercussions.
Yeah, just like there are repercussions if you are a member of this Michigan Liberty Militia and you think it's okay to intimidate people. My opinion all along when it comes to some of these people, not all of them, but some of them, is that if you're the type of person that's going to show up with your AR-15 and you're going to show up dressed as G.I. Joe, this isn't symbolic. It's not about, oh, I'm doing this because, I'm protecting my First Amendment rights. What it's about, it's not about the First or Second Amendment. It's about intimidation. And the majority of people in this country, I think I speak for many when I say this, if you see someone dressed up as G.I. Joe with an AR-15, you're gonna take a look at that and you might be intimidated. So the guy we have with us on the line, part of the Michigan Liberty Militia, he's nice enough to join us, where members of the Michigan Liberty Militia stood guard with weapons and tactical gear. Their faces were partially covered. And then they moved inside the Capitol along with several hundred other protesters. They demanded to be onto the House floor, which is prohibited. Some protesters had guns. They're allowed in the State House. They went to the Senate gallery, where at least one senator said that some armed men shouted at her, and some senators wore bulletproof vests. Well, one of the men that was there, his name is Phil Robinson from the Michigan Liberty Militia, and he joins us right now. Phil, I appreciate you coming on, sir. How are you?
What's up, Phil?
I am good. How are you doing today?
Doing good. I appreciate you coming on and stating your case. I don't know if you were listening to. Sure. This is my opinion on this, but before I give you my opinion, let me ask you a very basic question. Why did you feel like it was important to be there at that American Patriot rally?
We were asked there by Jason and Ryan and organizers of the American Patriot rally.
Okay, but is there a reason personally why you decided to show up? I would imagine you don't just show up to a rally without having some sort of reason for wanting to be there.
It's just something we like to do. We like to exercise our Second Amendment to show people that you're allowed to do that here in Michigan because we don't want to lose our rights.
All right, so there were reports that came out there that said that you guys were blocking doors of some people in that building. There were also reports saying that some of you, and I'm not saying you were doing this, but some of you were yelling at in the Senate gallery to at least one or two senators, shouting things at them while senators were wearing bulletproof vests. Do you find that to be a little bit of a dangerous situation? And were you one of those people that were shouting at others disrespectfully?
No, sir. I can tell you none of Michigan Liberty Militia members were shouting. I can guarantee you that. And to clear something else, too, I heard you talking earlier was about how we stormed the Capitol. There was no storming of the Capitol. The people wanted to go in. There was very few actual people carrying guns into the Capitol. If you look at the footage, there is a couple hundred people and maybe 10 people with long guns in the Capitol.
Okay. So were you one of those people with one of those guns?
No, I was not in the Capitol during that. No, I was outside keeping track of everybody else outside the rally.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you for clearing that up. That's important.
Well, because the state police were taking temperatures and letting people in. So.
Right. All right. Well, it's important to note that you were not one of those people, and I appreciate you sharing that with us because, to be honest with you, I didn't know that. I don't expect for you to speak for those people, but can you understand, Phil, from this perspective, and I'm talking from my perspective now, and I know I'm not alone, when you do see people dressed up as G.I. Joe with their faces partially covered, with AR-15s in their hand, do you understand how that could intimidate some people?
I suppose, but I don't know how. And just to clear something else up, nobody from Michigan Liberty Militia ever will cover their face.
Okay,
so these pictures you're seeing of these people covering their face, they had nothing to do with Michigan Liberty Militia.
Understood. Okay, understood, and I appreciate you clearing that up, but I have to ask this question again. You said you don't know how people can be intimidated. In a day and time where there are mass shootings throughout the country, gun violence is up, I know that it's gone down since the coronavirus pandemic. That's obvious. Why? Because there's not a lot of people in mass gatherings. You understand what I know you're not. I know you're not a dumb guy. You understand what I'm saying. There are school shootings, mass shootings. We had 59 people die in Las Vegas a few years ago, October 1. You're telling me you don't really comprehend or understand why someone would feel a little bit intimidated or at the least uneasy by someone dressed up as G.I. Joe with an AR-15 on them, and you're telling me you can't comprehend why somebody might feel intimidated by that? Is that your position?
Well, I mean, if they feel intimidated, why don't they come speak to us and find out who we really are as people? I mean, you can't. It's like don't never judge a book by its cover. I mean, the militia, it states that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is our right. And
I didn't say it wasn't your right.
Will not, your fear or whatever it is you have of that does not subsede my right to exercise my Second Amendment right.
Okay. I certainly did not say you broke the law, and I'm not even saying that those with guns broke the law. All I'm saying that those actions put people in fear, and I'm trying to understand what you're trying to accomplish. Can you name me one Democrat in office right now that wants to take all of your guns away? Because when you say you don't want people to infringe on your First or Second Amendment rights, what specific Democrat can you quote that is trying to actually do that? I'd love to hear.
I don't know. I can't say. I don't have the answer for that question because I don't pay that politic game. That game is the game. I don't get into that game.
Well, but that's an interesting argument. Is the thought process of I'm sorry that my constitutional rights offend you.
Right.
That's very interesting to think about because that happens in a lot of cases all over the country right now. And Michigan is an open carry state, so you have the right to have those weapons. I'm sure the weapons that the people that had the 10 long guns, I'm sure they had those registered and those were legal weapons. So if you have
law-abiding citizens,
absolutely.
And I'm glad to hear that. But the reason why I brought up, infringing on First and Second Amendment rights is because you brought that up. You said you don't want somebody to take away those rights. And I'm just simply asking you, who has said that they want to take those rights away from you? That's why I asked you that question. Because I don't think there's
anybody. Just anybody in general.
Okay, so you're not – okay, fair enough. So
it's a general answer, man.
Okay, fair enough. So you're not necessarily saying that there's anybody in office that's trying to do that. I just want to make sure we're clear.
No, he's just the – yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
He's not saying those rights are currently in danger.
What was that, sir?
So you're saying those rights are currently not in danger, but you don't want them to go away under any circumstances.
Our always in danger. Our freedom is always in danger.
You feel like – so why do you say that? I want to hear it from your perspective.
Well, I mean, every law passed and every right taken, no matter how small it is infringement on our freedom.
Okay.
I mean, why do we got to pay taxes to go to public parks? Why? I just don't understand that. That's public land.
Sure,
that is our land.
Sure. Okay, fair enough, but somebody has to pay for that park. Where does the money come from?
Where does the government get all this money from anyways? Taxpayers. Well,
I understand, but you just brought up the parks, and I'm just saying that money –
except in Nevada.
It costs money for these parks. Where does the money come from?
Man, let's talk about something else.
Okay, well, you brought it up, sir, not
honestly, me. That's off topic of what I want to discuss.
I understand, but you're the one who brought that up, not me. I'm not talking about parks. With all due respect, sir, you brought that up.
Let's talk about the parks then. Okay.
Don't bring up things you don't want to talk about.
Everything.
All right. Well, my advice is don't bring up something if you don't want to talk about it. But that's fine. We'll change the subject. We'll change the subject. Sean Hannity. I'm sure you've heard of Sean Hannity before. Of course. Sure. So you know who Sean Hannity is. He does a show on Fox News. He does a radio show 3 hours a day. He's actually on our station. Sean Hannity is one of those people that is all for First and Second Amendment rights. He talks about it all the time. Trust me, he does do that because I watch his show every single day. I want to just play a clip for you, Phil, if I may, and then I want you to comment.
I've seen that clip. I've heard it.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So I want to
let me just. He doesn't understand the Constitution.
All right. So Phil, if you just give me a second here, because I want to. I appreciate the fact that you heard it, but I just want our listeners to hear it. This is Sean Hannity. Fine. Thank you. This is Sean Hannity in his own words on his television show, talking about what took place in Michigan. Have a listen to this.
Now, no one is a bigger defender of the Second Amendment than yours truly. Everyone has the right to protest, protect themselves, and try to get the country open. This, with the militia look here and these long guns, no. Show of force is dangerous. That puts our police at risk. And by the way, your message will never be heard, whoever you people are. No one should be attempting to intimidate officials with a show of force. And God forbid something that happens, then they're going to go after all of us law-abiding Second Amendment people. I had a carry permit my whole life.
All right, Phil, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about what Sean Hannity just said. The floor is yours. Go ahead, Phil.
All right, first off, there was definitely no show of force. None, period.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or is that?
The militia, look, what is he talking about? There was several militia groups there.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
From Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Who
Understood.
helped out with security for this event. And
Listen,
as far as putting police lives in danger, if you go look at any of my Facebook, I have tons of pictures taken with state troopers, sheriffs, everything like that. They know who I am. They know we are not a threat to them.
And in no way, shape, or form am I saying that you were violent. In no way, shape, or form am I specifically saying that Phil Robinson broke the law. I think he's speaking, and again, I don't want to speak for Sean Hannity. I disagree with 99.9% of the things he talks about on his radio show and on television. But with that being said, in a way, I agree with him here, and here's why, Phil. I know you're going to disagree with me on this, but I do believe.
And that's fine.
When I do believe you're not breaking the law, but just because you're not breaking the law, I don't think you're accomplishing anything by dressing up as G.I. Joe, showing up with your AR-15s. I know you weren't one of those people. I get that. But I don't think you're accomplishing anything by doing that, going into the state capitol, chanting stuff out with your guns, looking like you're at war. I just don't think you're accomplishing anything. In fact, I think you're making the system more volatile and worse. That's how I feel, Phil.
We were not in the Capitol doing any of that. That's what you're not understanding.
But some were.
He said he was outside the Capitol.
I know you weren't.
And there were 10 of the 200 with long guns inside the Capitol, which were registered.
That's what you just said.
No, I'm not saying you were, but there were some that were in the Capitol. I've seen the video.
He's making a hypothetical for those that are in militias.
And do you defend those people for behaving that way? I'm not saying you did. Again, I'm emphasizing that. But there were some that were.
People have a right to exercise their freedoms however they feel fit, I guess. I mean, I'm not going to judge them. No, I don't.
Okay, but here's my problem with that argument. There's nothing wrong, that says in the law that you can't hold up a sign on the corner of a public street that says, I hate black people. Now, would you have that same attitude and say, well, you know what? It's their right. They have the right to do it. I'm not going to criticize. I would judge them. I would call them a racist. And I think that
I might not like it, but that is their right. I mean, do I like being called a white nationalist, a Nazi, a skinhead, No, I don't like any of that because none of that is true. But it's people's opinion.
I understand that.
That's a stereotype.
I understand where you're coming from, but what I'm trying to say is, what are these people trying to accomplish by behaving that way? That's all I'm trying. The people that were in the Capitol or protesters throughout the country.
They were trying to be heard.
So you think the best way to be heard is to dress up as G.I. Joe with AR-15s? You think that's
the dressing up as G.I. Joe had nothing to do with what occurred there.
And I'm asking you.
That's what you're not understanding. The militias showed up there to exercise our 2A to make sure people had a right to peacefully assemble, and we were asked there by the event organizers. Nothing more. We weren't protesters or anything.
I understand that your group didn't do that.
We need to make sure that is clear. We were not there to protest.
I have made it clear 10 times on this show that I believe you, that your group wasn't those people. But the point I am trying to make, and the point I'm trying to say again is, don't you think there's a more peaceful way of stating your opinion than going into the state capitol dressed as G.I. Joe with AR-15s? Don't you think there are other ways for your voice to be heard?
You keep taking that particular situation, which a couple of people did do, and applying it to the entire group.
I didn't say the entire group.
And making that their intention.
Thank you.
And Phil is saying that that's not the case.
I didn't say the entire group. And
you did say at the start of the interview that they have the right to be on the House floor.
Yeah, but they did some things like, for example, throughout the country, and I don't expect this gentleman to represent everybody throughout the country, but there are some that are not behaving the right way. There are some people that think in Carson City, Phil, I don't know if you heard what happened in Carson City, they felt the need and the right to basically try to get into our governor's mansion. They thought they had the right to do that. I just think it can get to a point where it can be uncomfortable for people, and I understand it's your right to do it, and I'm not saying you're breaking any laws. But let me ask you this. We've belabored that subject. Let me ask you this. What is your group all about, and why is the Southern Poverty Law Center listing you guys as an anti-government group?
Our group is all about standing up for the Constitution of the United States, making sure people who are afraid to voice their opinion have a voice. People might not have the courage to come stand by themselves will come stand with us. And if you think dressing up as G.I. Joe hasn't got my message out, you are sadly mistaken.
Why can't you do this message without guns? Why not without dressing up as G.I. Joe? Can't you do that same thing without being dressed like that?
Because that's not the way this country was founded by the militia. We are all militia in an aspect, except for a few elected government officials. So,
are you anti-government?
No, no, not at all.
Phil, would you live in a state that was not open carry?
I would fight to have my rights put into that state.
How would you fight to have your rights put into the state if that was the law? How would you go about that?
You can petition people. You get in with other groups. You get a bill passed. I'm not real good at any of that because that's not my specialty. But I have people that do that and know how to do that.
And it's good to have those people available to you. How many members are in a Michigan Liberty Militia?
About 16 of us.
So what are your thoughts on reopening the country? What are your thoughts on the governor in Michigan, and what are your thoughts on reopening the country just in general terms? Can you speak to that?
I think Trump never said we had to lock down, period. He'd social distancing, some common sense. I don't understand this whole lockdown. Sweden never locked down, and everything was okay there.
Yeah.
So you believe the entire country should reopen today? If you had it your way, if you were the president, do you think that everything should be open? In my opinion, yeah. So you would have no problem with 20 or 30,000 people tomorrow watching an NBA game or an NHL game? You don't have a problem with that? No, not really. I mean, I don't really know, man. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a specialist. So, I mean, you're asking me questions again off topic. But the country is people are wanting to go back to their normal lives. I understand, but
that's very true.
I have to disagree with you on something. When you say off topic, you were at a protest where many of the people at that protest, I would say the majority of them, want the governor to reopen the state. That's the whole reason why that protest was there to begin with. It wasn't about your First or Second Amendment rights, with all due respect, sir.
But, Brian, it's not just reopening the state. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she banned people from visiting their friends. She allowed you to buy alcohol but not buy seeds to plant in your garden. I mean, they had they had some very excessive measures.
We can get into that, and I understand what you're saying, JD, but the reason why I'm asking this to Phil is because he was the person, one of many, who was out there protesting, exercising his rights to do so. He didn't break any laws. But, Phil, with all due respect, it's not off topic. You just said you're okay with 20 to 30,000 people in an arena watching a game. And what I'm trying to tell you right now is our doctors and our scientists are saying that can't happen right now. We have to practice social distancing. There's two sides to every story, man, because you hear one side, I hear one side, and you got to read between the lines, I guess. I don't know. Okay. I'm not, like I said, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I don't know which doctor is right because there are two sides to this.
There are a lot of different doctors saying different things.
I mean, there was a doctor at the event that was speaking out about this. And I appreciate you saying you're not a doctor, and neither am I, but I'm trying to listen to the doctors and the scientists, and you understand why I'm asking that question. So my point is, if you don't know, then why are you protesting and why are you saying we should reopen? The people that don't live in fear, that don't fear this, whatever, let them have their life back. The people that don't live in fear, let them have their life back. Do you understand that if we just had that attitude and just let people go out there and do what they want, there's a lot of people that would get sick, and there's probably a lot of people that could get other innocent people sick. Do you not understand that, where I'm going with that?
Brian, that's happening anyways.
I mean, I don't see there's no middle ground on this, I guess. There's no happy ending to this. There's no matter what happens, it's. Well, of course there's no happy ending. If this virus is here, it's going to be here no matter what we do. We can't prevent it 100%, no matter what we do. Well, I disagree with you. I think the reason why we are preventing it is because, if I could just finish, I think the reason why we are preventing is because we're practicing social distancing. I think the reason why our death toll is so low in Nevada is because the governor decided to shut down the Strip. I believe social distancing is absolutely saving lives. And I think if we had it some other people's way, where everything was open, I think the deaths would continue to rise. And I think it's a possibility that New York could look like the entire country. Well, that's just my personal opinion.
And I have a totally different opinion. I think that the virus actually got here in Nevada. in December or January infected a lot of people. They didn't die of it, and the reason there's not a lot of cases and deaths here is because people already had the virus and have an immunity to it.
All right, but as we said, none of us are doctors or scientists, and I appreciate you saying that, Phil. I guess one of my last questions to you would be this: what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about your group?
About our group? Man, I don't know, because so many people love us. I mean, anybody that attends these rallies will tell you nothing but good things about us. You can talk to the state.
Well, I have no doubt.
Nothing good about us.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt about that, because the people that are protesting.
People that I would say that have a problem with what we do or anything like that, come speak to us at one of these rallies. Reach out to me, talk to me, find out who I am and what we are really about.
Okay,
and
fair
that
enough.
should go with all militia groups. Find out who they are, what they're about.
Okay,
because
well,
all
I
groups
will.
are different.
And I will say this: you're a stand-up guy for coming on, and that's exactly what we did. Quite frankly, even though I don't agree with you on a lot of the topics that we've discussed today, I appreciate the fact that you were willing to come on our show and you were willing to state your case. And you're a man of your word, and I appreciate you for doing that.
And everybody is entitled to a different opinion on things. That's what makes this country great.
I agree, but I just value scientists and doctors' opinions when it comes to the coronavirus more than me or you or anybody else. That's just my opinion. I want to listen to the experts. But like I said again, Phil, I do appreciate you coming on. You're a stand-up guy. I'm glad that you're not breaking any laws. I'm glad your group wasn't one of those groups that went in there with the guns and all that. I'm happy. I'm actually happy to hear you say that. And I appreciate you. So thank you for coming on, Phil. We appreciate
thank you
your
for
time.
having me, but just make sure, I just want the audience to know that we did not storm the Capitol here in Michigan. That is false news. That is fake news, 100%.
Fair enough, and I'm glad I'm glad you cleared that up on our show, Phil. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Phil.
Yep.
If you guys have any more questions or want to do this again, I'm usually open.
Sounds good.
Appreciate you, Phil, and I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.